Hello, this is Sabina at Cross Keys Crafts. Today I would like to create a pop-up card with a cake on it. This came about because I need a thank you card for the lady in the village who made our wedding cake. It was my wedding last week. Everything went well. By the time this video is posted, I will have posted something on my community page so you can see what I look like and what my husband looks like. So I had a think and I googled ideas and had a look on YouTube on cake cards, and I came across pop-up cards with cakes, but I didn't really like the fact that they were all sort of at an angle unless I used the 3D mechanism from Made to Surprise, but I haven't touched that yet. I don't want to start that. I want quick cards. And also there is a wedding coming up that I need a card for, so I thought I'll make 2 cards today, and for that I need some pattern paper. The way I have designed the cake on the inside, I need pattern paper that is patterned on both sides, and ideally you've got pattern paper that has got a similar colour on either side or has a less busy pattern on the back. And I found when I looked through my stash, there aren't that many paper pads where the colours on the front and back actually match. This is really weird. But I found this here. This is like a cherry flower, so that's a nice pink. And on the back is just polka dots. So I think this will work nice. For the other card, I'll be using this here. I'll show you in a moment which paper pads these are from. This is a more like a coral pink, but still very nice, and this would work nice for the cake. And on the back it's this tile motif, and yes, it is a bit bolder, but I still think it will work nicely because it is a very similar color, a bit darker than the pink there. So, and then before we put them on the side, I was looking for some papers for the fronts of the cards, and just to show you some ideas, I don't know yet whether I'll be using these. This is like a bird pattern paper. This is actually from a pad I got in Germany, but this is a sort of similar muted pink, which I think would work nicely. Or I thought maybe just some striped pattern cardstock. This striped pattern cardstock is from this one here. I've showed you this one before. That I think was from DRK Crafts, I think they're called. That I got a good bargain on this one. But as I said, other designs work as well. It's really up to you what you like. I thought maybe even doing the cake with this butterfly paper, but then again it's very bold on the back. And I also had a look at this. I just wanted to show you this. This is from B&M. I bought that maybe 2 years ago. I never really used it, but I saw that there are lots of pretty pieces in here that you can actually, there's some larger pieces in here, but there are also some smaller ones which would work for the front of a card. So I just rediscovered that, and I thought I'd just quickly show this to you if that is still available. This, for example, is a 6x6 piece that would work well for a wedding card because it's got little hearts on it. So, and even plain ones like these, you can make something with that without it being too busy. This is just like a bit of color, very muted. So yeah, if you've got this pad maybe in your stash, dig it out. I only just rediscovered it myself. So the papers I am using are from this one here. This is from the Works. So that's a 12 by 12, 230 GSM. And this is the other one with the tiles. That's also from the Works, also 230 GSM. So just in case you've got similar stuff in your stash and you might want to recreate the card as I'm creating it. So I'm just putting the pads away now, and then I'll show you what you need to do. So I have decided to create my card on a 6x6 base, or rather than 5x7/8 by 5x7/8, because that's the size of the Works cardstock. And I would like to have 3 tiers in my cake. Obviously you can change that up, and I will show you in a moment when I make these how they function, and then that gives you an idea how to alter these measurements if you want to. All of these tiers I'd like to have 2.5 inches high, but again, as I said, you can vary that. You can have the bottom ones higher than the top ones. Sorry, this is the top one, that's the bottom one. I just started with the longest one. So for the bottom tier, I have chosen this to have this at 10.5 inches, and then you need to score at 2.5, 5, let me jump here, I'll explain in a moment why, 7.5 and 10. 10 will just create a little flap here. We do that on all the pieces. And the idea behind these are we're basically halving this strip in the middle and then halving either side again, minus obviously the flap. And this would give you basically the back of a flap. I can show you my piece that I have created, but it's not really pretty. It's just what I have tried to do. So basically we're creating the back here, and then we're creating the front piece. And rather than having this flat and just creating a square, I thought it would be nice and a bit nicer for a cake if I scored these as well in the middle again, just to give it a bit of a rounder shape. Don't know if you can see that there. So, and this is why these score lines are. So this is basically the back, this is the side piece, that's the middle, and then I scored again here at 6 1/4 and 8 3/4. So just to give this, and then it is optional for you if you want to score in between again. I haven't done this here yet. I think I will do this with one cake, and with the other one I'll leave it as it is, and then you can see the difference afterwards. So whatever measurements you have, you create a flap, you halve your strip, and then you basically halve it again on either side, or you quarter it as you want to, and then just on this side here, on one side, you then find the middle again. So the middle between 5 and 7.5 is 6 1/4, and the middle between 7.5 and 10 is 8 3/4. I hope this makes sense. I'll leave this here a moment as well if you want to take a screenshot. And in the same way we create the others. So this one's a little bit easier. You have an 8.5 inch strip, and you score at 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then the smallest one for the top is 6.5 inches, and you score at 1.5, 3, 3 3/4, 4.5, 5 1/4, and 6. So I'll leave this here as I said. Yeah, I'm going to create these strips off camera now, and then I'll show you how to attach them, because once you've got the measurements, once you've scored it all, it's really easy to assemble, and then you just need to embellish it. So I'm just popping in. It's a bit later tonight and my brain's not fully functioning today. I just realised when I wanted to cut the third strip that this would not fit in a 6-inch high card, because this is already 6 and 7.5 inches high, so that would not work. So I'm just doing 2 tiers. I will put in a disclaimer. Obviously, if you change the size, you could have a third tier, or I might actually do that. I might actually cut these slimmer. Maybe I should just do that, but they need to be quite slimmer. So let me just figure that out for a moment, and I'll let you know what I've cut. So 2.5 is definitely too high, so I need to go under 2 inches per strip here. And as I said, I'll put in a disclaimer so you don't stop the video there, start cutting, and then curse me afterwards. So I've cut my strips down to 1 3/4, and then I know all 3 tiers will fit onto my 6x6 card. And I just wanted to show you a little trick. I have already scored the major lines here, which is the 2.5, 5, sorry, this is a long strip here. So 2.5, 5, and I just did this 6 1/4, that's a 7.5, and the 8 3/4, and the 10 inch. But then I wanted to do the ones in between, and that is a bit tricky here because it's quite difficult to see. So all you can do is just turn it over, and then you might have a less busy pattern. I definitely found that an advantage on this cardstock here, and it was much easier to see it from the back. I don't know how well the camera picks it up. So I'll just remember that I don't want to do that on this one, because I said I would do two different kinds of cards. So the ones where I'm actually having these score lines and the ones where I don't have that. So that's just a little tip. Also, make sure ideally if you have a directional pattern that you all put them in the right way. This one here, I think the leaves are all facing upwards, so I need to make sure I score them the right way around. With this one I didn't pay too much attention, so I'll let it surprise me afterwards whether I've done it correctly. So yeah, that's all we need to do with these. So we'll be scoring these in a moment, but I just show you how to continue from that. When you have scored all the strips, you then need to burnish them really nicely, and they are all mountain folds. So the pattern you want on the outside you need to have as a mountain fold. So burnish them properly, every single one, and I've already done that with this one. So now to glue them together, you need to cut off a slither on this side here. So this is where you've got the two wider panels. Reason being, the way it's folded, if you try to glue this together flat, you would basically, let me show you this way around. This is actually too long to fold this round. The idea is to hide the flap behind this strip in the back. So you just need two scissors. I wouldn't even bother about the trimmer or the guillotine, and just take a little slither off like this. And now when you fold it flat, you can feel it. It's easy to fold this over, because you want this to be absolutely flat, because you will need this to be flat in the card. So check this with all three strips, because again I'll show you these are the wider strips here, and or the wider parts here. So again, just cutting a little bit off, and the same on this one. So to glue them together, I'm going to use let me just move my scoreboard because I don't need that at the moment. So to glue them together, what you want to do is lay this flat, and at first you need to put some glue here on the flap on the side. So I'm just using my Cosmic Shimmer because it's a quick grab glue. I know this will instantly adhere and I won't have any problem it moving afterwards. I might have a bit too much there, so I'm just using my finger, finding some scrap paper on the side here, just to get rid of that. So then I'm just, as I said, I'm folding this flat. Make sure this doesn't wobble, as in sort of doesn't disalign here. So just align this here and then press this down and make sure it's properly flat. It does want to ooze out a little bit. If that happens, open it up and make sure the front doesn't stick to the back. So I'm leaving that for a moment, and I'm just doing this with these. I think I just do this off camera and then I come back. I will have to put a disclaimer in again because I forgot one thing when I glued these together. I didn't mean to glue this onto this panel, I meant to glue it underneath. So just to show you, so this is the back panel, the one that has less scoring on it, and this one's not supposed to go on the outside, it's going to go behind it, because then it means that the flap will actually be hidden on the front of the card. So basically you put the glue on here and then fold it over rather than putting the glue on here and putting this on top. I hope that makes sense. So again, I will have to put in a disclaimer. Sometimes I get carried away when I create things and then I forget these little things. So it doesn't really make a difference, it just looks a little bit neater. So although it looks funny now, that will be on the back of the card. and then you won't be able to see this really. You could then, if you wanted to, cut this at a bit at an angle so it doesn't show it all. This one shows a little bit, but again, I'm not worried about it. It's a homemade card, so I shall just leave it at this. So just finish these off camera and then I show you how to glue them onto the card. I suggest you decorate the outside before you put anything on the inside, because the inside will get a bit bulky and then it might be a bit difficult to adhere anything on the front. So I have already prepared a few things. So I have decided on this bird paper on the front, and I have cut this down a bit to 5 3/4, I think this is, so it will sit nicely on this card. So I'm just gluing this down with my collal glue. I just paused my filming because the glue wasn't coming out and it was all stuck around the tip, and I tried to pull it off with my pliers and now the whole tip's come off, but it doesn't matter. I just still use it as it is and we'll sort it out afterwards, just in case you're wondering why you're seeing something different to before. So the good thing about the collal glue is you've always got a bit of a wiggle room if it's not straight, and then when you press it down it'll be straight. So for the front, as far as decorations are concerned, I've only cut this little sentiment on your special day. I want to show you two other things that you could have used. Sorry, I could have used. I've got these textures by Lou Collins. I've got these dies. So I found the wedding here, which is really nice, but it's only wedding wish, and I would have liked wedding wishes. So, and it is going to Germany, so I just thought I'd just leave this as a little sentiment here. And I have backed this up just with a bit of a heavy vellum. A friend gave that to me, a crafty friend, so I think that would be really nice. The other sentiment that I'm using for the other card, just wanted to show you this. It's the Creative Craft Products Modern Sentiments die set, and that is really nice. I know that Sam Calcott loses that a lot, so that's quite nice to have in your stash. But I'm not enticing you to buy anything, just giving you some ideas. This, by the way, I've cut this out of this pearlescent cardstock. Don't know if you can see this. It's pearlescent on one card. I will link to that below. I think this is really nice to have for cards when you want a bit of elegance but not too much in the face, because it's not proper metallic. And I've also got a few hearts in it, a few bits of foliage. I'll show you that in a second. So I think that's really nice. So I'm just going to use this one on the front here and the heart here. Again, I'm just gluing this down quickly. Oh, as this is heavyweight vellum, I'm not too bothered about having glue showing through a little bit, although I'm having second thoughts about that. I might actually use my glue pen. Sometimes I'm not too bothered. Sometimes I use double-sided adhesive before I cut this. It's also a good way to glue this down, but I might actually just use this glue pen. It's the two-way zig glue, and this is perfect. So I'm just basically following the sentiment here, and then it shouldn't show on the other side. But as I said, as it's heavyweight vellum, it might not show anyway. So leave that bit to dry. It's blue before, and once it is clear, you know you can stick it down. Just eyeballing this and press it down. And this one I will just glue down with this glue. Popping this here. Okay, so I'm leaving this to dry for a moment. Oops, see, this is what happens. I just moved this a bit because it slipped a little bit. So I'm leaving that to dry for a moment. And then I wanted to show you the sentiment here. I have used this from the other die set there, the modern sentiments. And then I've also This is what this does. It cuts out the letter out of the cardstock, and I really like this. But it's probably designed to have this just as a banner, but I wanted this to be on the oval. I don't know if the camera picks this up. It actually shows these pieces here. So one way to remedy this is to send it through an embossing folder and then basically disguise these lines a little bit. And this is what I'm going to do with this. I just wanted to show you the before, and then after I've done it I can show you the after, and then you see it will have almost disappeared. So for the other card I have decided to use the stripy cardstock, and at first I've got a tendency to always have stripes going up, but I decided I will actually have them sideways, because with the cake on the inside, which has also got sideways strips, I think this would be really nice. And I'm contemplating whether I just want this at the front like this, with the cardstock shining through there and stripes, or I've got a piece of pink here that I could put behind. Obviously cut it to shape. I might actually do that, although this pink clashes a little bit with this. I've also got a more muted pink here. I know my camera never picks them up anyway as they are. Yeah, this might be a bit more pleasing to the eye. So I shall quickly do this off camera, and then I'll show you how to adhere the bits on the inside. So I just wanted to show you this. There's still a very faint line, but it doesn't really show anymore, and you've got the lovely hearts there, so they're very nicely distract from the original lines. So they're still there, but it's not as obvious anymore as it would have been on the plain card. So I just cut the back here just by hand. I just eyeballed it. Obviously you could cut it again with the same die if you wanted to. And now I'm just gluing this on the front of the card. To adhere it, I used the glue pen again, because it's really nice to get onto these smaller bits there. But for the back I'm just using this and making sure I go all the way around where I haven't got the pink cardstock, to just make sure this all is really nicely adhered. And now just pop this on the front, in the middle. I want to keep this really plain on the front, because for this one I would like the inside to be the showstopper and not the outside. So I'm coming back to this one now, making sure I'm not mixing up the two different cakes as well. So this is nicely adhered. Now for the inside, we have got these three pieces, these three tiers, and again I'm making sure they're facing the right way. So with the leaves going up, which happens, so the flap is here on the left hand side, make sure I've got them all the same, and just making sure where I want to place them to make sure they all fit in here nicely. So it's, oh sorry, I'm going off camera here. So I've got a bit of a gap on either end, top and bottom, and I think I would go a little bit further to the bottom, have a bit more space on the top. So what I need to do now is to put glue on these two bits here. This is the one where I have scored it more times than on this one here. So the glue needs to go on those two back panels. And I think I will use the quick wrap glue for that one again. So what I need to make sure of is that the score line here is right on the score line here, and I will do that by folding it over like this, so the glue is on this panel and on this panel, and I will lift this side up here and I will basically put this into the fold, and then I will press this down. This way I know the card is going to fold flat, and when I open it up I've got it like this, and it should also fold flat. If I've done it properly, it should also fold flat the other way. I'd have to move it just a little bit into the fold. If you find that difficult, you might want to use the collage glue instead. I've got a bit of a gap here but it doesn't really matter as long as it is flat. If I'm not sure, no, I'm not peeling it off now. As long, and also the recipient won't open it as wide as that, so that's fine. As long as it folds flat that way, it should be fine. So once that is done, I'm going to take the second tier and I'm doing the same thing again. So this time I need to make sure, obviously, I'm not overlapping with the first tier. So I'm just leaving a millimetre. Make sure it's straight, pressing it down. There we go. So same with the third tier. So then when I open it up, I've got these 3 tiers here, and if I open it up completely, I won't do it just yet because the top one's still a tiering, then these will sit flat. But because I've scored them, they are actually a bit 3-dimensional, well, not 3-dimensional, but a bit more dimensional, a bit rounder, if you can see that from the top there. And I think this is quite pleasing to the eye. So whilst that is still drying, I shall quickly do the other card, and then I will also embellish these on the inside. As I said, I've die cut some foliage. I've die cut this from the pearlescent cardstock again, but I've also cut a bit from the pink cardstock, which is actually quite a thin paper, because if I just show you this quickly, white on white is nice, but it can be a bit boring. So if I just layer this almost like a shadow, or just offsetting this a bit, the effect is much better. Don't know how well the camera picks it up. So I shall be playing around with that. As I said, I've got a few more hearts. I will place these on the cake. The important thing with this one here is you can place them anywhere on the tiers as long as you don't go over the middle line, because this is folding flat and you don't want to interfere with this side. And if you want to have them here on these lines, make sure you only glue them down in one of the segments. So either on this segment, not putting any glue here, or if you want to have it like here and overlap, glue it on this one here, but not on there, and then it should actually work. So I shall do this off camera. I'll try to keep these videos as short as possible, and then I think I can show you the finished cards. I might have to think about a few embellishments for this one. My 2 cards are finished. So this is the first one. I have, as I said, I've added the hearts here and made sure I wasn't going over the score lines with the glue, so that these actually fold like that and the heart doesn't stick these down. This, by the way, is the one that I scored less. So, and it was a bit bare on the top here and at the bottom here, so I just used the same pattern cardstock and die cut these 2 words, love and wedding. And I think this is nice now, not too much going on, and this is how it stands up. And I find the inside the pattern is not too bold, slightly hidden, but I find this a bit nicer than just having a white background here. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with that, and it folds really nicely flat, so it's easy to be put in the post. The other one is this one here. As I said, I kept it plain on the outside here, and the inside's also plain because I want to write my message here on the inside. This is the one that I've scored a bit more, so the overall shape is a bit rounder than with the other one. And that also meant that I had to be careful with the embellishments here. So again, they only sit on one of these segments. Let me maybe show you that with a hard at the bottom here, so it's only glued down on this segment. And obviously the higher you go, the slimmer the segments go, so you have to be even more careful with the glue. Like the one on the top here, if I just show you this is only glued down really here in the middle, so it folds nicely. And as I said before, make sure you don't go over the middle line. And you could do actually, unless you glue it down, but I find it nicer if it's to the side. And make sure, also sure you don't interfere with this here. So again, this folds down really nicely, and when you open it up, you've got a 3D cake here, which I think is really nice. I just use these small dies. I think I've shown you the strawberry one before, and I definitely have. This is just a Sizzix die. Have a look in your stash. Just a little tip though, for die cutting from this pearlescent cardstock or even mirror cardstock, I always cut little pieces like this before I die cut these, because if you put a bigger piece through the die cutting machine, your die cutting plates might leave an imprint on this paper because it is so delicate, and then you basically ruin your cardstock. If you only have these small pieces, you can't damage any surrounding cardstock, and you can easily use that again. So yeah, I think this is all I need to mention for these. So yeah, if you like these cards, you might want to give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of what I'm creating, I usually post on a Wednesday and a Sunday. You might want to subscribe to my channel. I'd be very happy about that. And I'll see you soon with another video.